Low-key geek.
Hey,
He's a low-key geek. He tries to be out there when he wants to be, but hey, he's a low-key
a low-key
geek.
Oh, hey, what's going on, guys? It's been a while, but hey, I am back with the LOWKEY GEEK Podcast here. I am Renee, LOWKEY GEEK, and yeah, it's been a while. I haven't done one of these in the last couple of months due to various reasons. I think mainly, well, there are two factors here. So basically, I've been really busy with some home renovations that kind of chipped in at during chipped away at my free time that I had every week. And I've been doing, putting a lot of focus also on my Twitch channel these days. Getting a great following there and growing the community and stuff like that. And so that's number one, but I think the number two, and probably should be moved up to number one, and the main reason why I haven't done one of these is because, let's face it, pop culture news in general has been kind of bleak. For those of you who have listened to the podcast before or watched the YouTube videos where this mainly lives on YouTube in my YouTube channel, I talk a lot about news, about movie news, and every week I feel like it's been the same thing where it's been, this movie got delayed, this movie got pushed back, this movie's production has been halted because someone on set came down with corona or tested positive for this. And it's been, kind of depressing. And, I haven't really had a lot of fun in talking a lot about that stuff. Now, granted, there's been other things that's been happening outside of the movie world, where it comes to like Netflix and Hulu and Amazon. And I've been kind of keeping up with a lot of that stuff. But for the most part, I just haven't had that drive to talk about movie news until now because of the big news that broke last week. On Thursday. I am filming this on a Sunday. And I really, really wanted to talk about it when I heard about it, and it kind of got my mojo back. And I was like, you know what? I kind of miss doing the weekly podcast, so I am back here, and I will be doing these every week. I'm still trying to narrow down a specific time and day of the week where these will drop, but I think for now I will be aiming for end of the week for these episodes to drop on YouTube. And hopefully by the time this goes up live on YouTube later on that day or the next day, it will be fully live in podcast format too, which is something that I haven't been able to do with my past episodes, but I'm looking forward to doing moving forward. So I'm really excited to get all that stuff rolling. So if you enjoy this, if you like what you see, if you enjoyed me with my videos in the past, do hit that like and subscribe button on YouTube. That will be greatly appreciated. And then once I'm live and fully functional on podcast form, do provide decent ratings and hopefully get myself up there in the charts, and do follow and subscribe there. But without further ado, like I said, big news came out last week that I'm going to talk about. But just for other things that I'm planning on talking about too for this episode, I watched Mank on Netflix, which is a new David Fincher movie that I was really waiting for and I couldn't wait to watch. I'm a pretty big David Fincher fan and really, really looking forward to this. So I'll provide my review for that later in the episode. And I think since these are dropping pretty much like at the end of every week, I will be talking about Mandalorian episodes until the season ends, and then we'll probably do like a full season recap. So I hate skirting around the non-spoiler stuff, so it will be a spoiler heavy discussion. So I will warn you ahead of time that I'm keeping that for the last thing of the episode, so that if you haven't watched it and you don't want to be spoiled at all, you can just go ahead and end the video or end the podcast there, and then hopefully I'll see you back next week or the following week or what have you. But yeah, so let's dive into the big news. So, with the pandemic and corona wreaking havoc across the world, businesses have been suffering big time. And one of those big businesses have been the movie industry, right? So movie theaters across the US have been partially opened or closed, or then reopened and then closed again. I think the only kind of form of watching movies outside of your home during the summer were drive-ins. And, some drive-ins were open throughout the majority of the summer season. If you live on the East Coast like I do, majority of drive-ins have already officially closed down for this season. If you live in warmer climates, I do believe they're still up and about and thriving every week. But the movie industry has been suffering. We've been hearing news week in and week out about delays or release dates being pushed back and all that. 2021, it has now kind of accumulated this huge list of blockbuster movies and other all forms of movies that is now slated to release throughout the year of 2021, and it is stacked, really, really stacked. But yet we still don't have like that light at the end of the tunnel really 100% as to when movie theaters can be fully open, and then when people actually will be comfortable in going to watch movies in theaters. The theater industry has been suffering for quite a bit. The movie theater chains like AMC and Regal have been like really struggling. AMC is probably the worst of them all, where before the pandemic they were already having a lot of financial woes, and there were talks about maybe partnering up or selling or doing something. And then the pandemic hit, and even more so, it escalated all of that. So, and then the movie studios, they've been going through kind of reorganizations and figuring out what are they going to do with their slate of movies. How are they going to release these to the public and all that. You had, some studios that, kind of took a stance and said, you know what, we're going to move it on to PVOD, paid video on demand. And we saw that with titles like Onward, Bill and Ted, and they saw success in that. Then you saw Disney try something similar, where they decided that they were going to release Mulan, the live action Mulan, on their platform, but at an additional fee of like $30 on top of your usual monthly subscription. And that crashed and burned and got a lot of backlash from that. Even so that I believe about a month or 2 months after that happened, then they started allowing purchases of the movie on services like iTunes and Amazon. But then they started bundling it up with like the original animated movie for like $20, I think, or $25, or I think they kept it at the $30 range, which was kind of a huge slap to the face of people who paid the $30 fee to watch this movie on Disney Plus. And now, as of Friday, Mulan is now free to watch on Disney Plus with just a regular subscription. So, it's been a learning moment for a lot of these studios to try to figure out how are they going to handle things, what are they going to do moving forward. But on Thursday, it was officially announced that Warner Brothers took a huge stance, and they said that they are officially in 2021 going to release all 17 of their films that are slated to release next year. They're going to debut them on HBO Max at no additional fee, in conjunction with releasing them in theaters on their respective release date. And the internet just went nuts. And even myself, I was just like, are you kidding me? Like, that's huge. Now, there are some caveats to this, and basically each movie that is going to be debuting on HBO Max will only be allowed to watch, will only be able to live on HBO Max for 30 days, the first 30 days of its launch. After the 30 days, they're going to remove it off the service, but you can still watch it in movie theaters for, wherever movie theaters are open and you have the access to. Kind of similar to what they're planning to do with Wonder Woman at the end of this month, when they decided that they were going to release Wonder Woman on HBO Max, I believe on Christmas Day, actually. And at the same time as them releasing them in movie theaters, mainly like in international territories and all that. But it's also has a time limit where you could only watch it for the first 30 days after its debut, and then afterwards they're going to remove it from the service. So again, very, very big news. And, they're the first studio that came out with this huge announcement. So, what is planning to be released next year? So let's run down the list here. So out of like the major big budget movies, blockbuster type movies, you have Denis Villeneuve's Dune that everyone was waiting for. That was actually supposed to release at the end of this year. It should have been in theaters by now. So that was pushed back into next year. So you could expect to see that on HBO Max. The sequel to The Matrix 4, will be debuting on HBO Max next year. James Gunn's version of The Suicide Squad will be on HBO Max next year. Lin-Manuel Miranda's In the Heights, another highly anticipated movie, will be on HBO Max next year. The Sopranos prequel, The Many Saints of Newark, for those Sopranos fans out there, which a lot of you are, and I know you were waiting for this and to see what they were going to do here. That's going to be debuting on HBO Max next year. And the sequel to Space Jam, A New Legacy, with LeBron James helming it, that's going to be released on HBO Max next year as well. On top of these, you have other titles like Godzilla vs. Kong, which is the third in the kind of franchise that they built there. You have the next feature. No, I'm sorry, Godzilla vs. Kong is going to be the fourth installment of that franchise. But you have the third main feature of the Conjuring franchise that's coming out. You have a reboot of Mortal Kombat. You have the Will Smith-led sports drama King Richard, Denzel Washington's led The Little Things, James Wan's Malignant, Clint Eastwood's Cry Macho, and the new Tom and Jerry film that's supposed to come out in February. Then you have a historical drama, Judas and the Black Messiah. You have a neo-western by Taylor Sheridan, Those Who Wish Me Dead, and Lisa Joy's sci-fi tale, Reminiscence. So, huge list of titles, and I'm pretty sure a good portion of them are highly anticipated movies that movie fans like myself are really dying to catch when it comes out. And again, it's unprecedented how big of an announcement this is and how big of a decision it was for Warner Brothers to say, you know what, this is what we're going to have to do. This is the only way we're going to be able to make sure that everyone will have an opportunity to watch our films next year. And they also said that this is a test plan. Well, they didn't say that verbatim, but basically this is a plan for 2021. Once more news comes out and more details about how Corona is going to be handled, the vaccines and all that kind of stuff like that, then they will reevaluate for 2022 and forward, to see how they're going to handle their release schedule moving forward. Now, obviously, this was probably a huge blow to a lot of the movie theater chains because they weren't expecting this. And there have been a lot of debate about release windows as to like how soon can a studio release their movies on demand or paid service or what have you after it releases in the movie theaters. So this pretty much just bypasses a lot of that. Now, even though you are getting the same day release for theaters and on demand, it's taking money away from the movie theaters chains. So you had like Cinemark and Regal who kind of, responded in a nice way. It's just like, we understand, this is a different time and things are changing moving forward and what have you. But then you had AMC, and AMC is not one that backs down from their feelings about anything that the studios decide to do. And they didn't have that great of kind words to respond in response to Warner Brothers' decision. So now, I have a lot of mixed feelings about this, obviously, because I am a huge moviegoer. I am a huge movie fan. I am a movie buff. I wouldn't call myself kind of like a cinephile because I don't really dive so much into the history of film and all that, but I think I know enough and I educate myself enough when there are some gaps in my knowledge there. So, and yeah, I'll start off with telling a little story about my love for movies here. So, in my earliest memories of a child, I still remember the day my dad first bought us our very first VHS player. Um, during that time, the VHS players were these bulky, hulking metal machines where you had to load in the VHS from the very top. So it was like a top loading machine. I believe it was like a Fisher or some other like Zenith brand or something like that. But some of the first movies I saw that way were the original Star Wars trilogy, mainly Star Wars 1 and Empire Strikes Back. And I remember one of the other videos that I had running constantly as a kid was like a 4-hour tape of like Battle of the Planets. That's what kind of started my whole dive into Japanese anime and cartoons and all that. However, I remember going to the movie theater with my dad, and my first movie recollection as far as theater going experience was watching Buckaroo Banzai in the theaters with my dad, and which is kind of a weird movie to take a young person like myself. I believe I was 3 or 4 at the time. But he really wanted to see that movie, and it was a sci-fi movie. I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know who anybody was, but of course it's turned into a cult classic many years later. Moving forward, I remember when Gremlins first came out. I fell in love with that movie when I saw it with my mom in the movie theater, so much so that for the next month, almost every week, sometimes twice a week, my babysitter actually took me to watch it in the theaters. And I saw Gremlins 8 times in the movie theaters. And that's probably the one movie I saw most times in the theater. And then I remember watching a whole bunch of other movies and all that. Again, fast forward when I was in grade school going into junior high. Movies was a good escape for me because, I had working parents. My mom was no longer with my dad, but she was never home because she was always working. So I needed a little break to kind of just not, keep my mind off of things at home and all that. And, in walking distance from where I lived in Queens, there were 2 movie theaters. There was the Jackson Triplex, which was like a 3-screen movie theater. And then there was the Colony, which was like a 2-screen theater. And in those movie theaters, I saw Gremlins. I saw Back to the Future 2 and 3. And of course, I saw a lot of duds too, where I saw movies like, I don't think it's fair to call this a dud. This is a pretty much a cult classic at this point, but I saw Monster Squad there. I saw that Elvira movie that came out. I believe I also saw one of the Ernest Goes to Something movie or what have you. But needless to say, I was a huge moviegoer, and that carried on, throughout the years of my life, even up to now, where, pre-pandemic, I was at the movie theaters at least once a week, as long as there was something decent that I wanted to watch. So the movie theater experience is, I hold very dear to my heart, and it's that communal experience that I really enjoy. When I go watch a movie in the theater, getting to hear the crowd react, laughing all at the same moment, crying all at the same, moments and all that. I remember watching the, Mr. Rogers documentary. I believe it was Won't You Be My Neighbor? I believe that's the name of it. I can't remember. But at the end of that documentary, everyone in the theater was crying. You heard sniffling. You heard, people just like tearing because of how beautiful of a documentary that was, and reliving our memories of Mr. Rogers. I remember you've seen the clip all throughout the pandemic of the cheers and the people just going nuts when Captain America grabbed Thor's hammer for the very first time. The whole scene where he's like, Avengers Assemble. Like it brought out that huge crowd reaction and all that. I remember watching Independence Day at the movie theater, and at that climax at the very end, when you had Randy Quaid in his like fighter jet about to go into the main, alien ship, and he's like, "Up yours," and then the film cut because we had no idea that someone in the back row was having a seizure, and then they had ambulance come in and wheel that person out, and all of us, most of them were like people from my school who were catching the movie, were like, "Oh my god, what's happening?" And then literally 15 to 20 minutes later they decide to resume the movie at that moment, and it kind of took away the moment, that huge like climactic moment at the end. It kind of took it away. But again, these are memories that I remember, going to the movie theater. And so I feel movie theater experiences are very important for me and for a lot of people who love movies. I know there are a lot of people who also don't really enjoy going to movie theaters that much, and within recent years there's a lot of reasons why. You have parents who bring their kids, more often than not, who are way too young to be watching that movie, and they're running around and making a lot of noise. Now everyone has access to cell phones, so you have a lot of people who are looking at their cell phones during the movies with the bright lights and everything, causing huge distractions. You have people who constantly talk throughout the movies and all that, so it's been kind of annoying sometimes going to the movie theater. But still, it for me, it's not enough to take away from that great experience of watching movies in theaters. It's also a family kind of experience too. During the holidays, we are now in December, and a tradition of my family before was either Thanksgiving or Christmas. After dinner or the next day, all of us will just hop in a car and go to the movies, and watch something all together as a group. And I know a lot of families have that type of tradition. So one of the things that I terribly miss right now is going back to the movie theaters. Now, with a move like this, obviously this is going to make a huge impact to the movie theater experience and movie theaters in general, because this is a major studio that said we're going to be releasing our movies on our streaming service. At the same time, we're going to launch on movies in the movie theaters. But with everyone who are, people who are so used to staying home, watching movies from the comfort of their home because they don't want to go out because of the pandemic and all that, or they can't go out. This is something that we're going to start getting used to. And if I know that I'm going to be able to get a major motion picture at home on the same day it was supposed to come out, and I don't have to go to the theater and I don't have to pay extra money, then I'm definitely going to watch it at home. Would I ever go back out and watch it in the theater? If it's a great, like, kind of effects heavy movie, maybe I will. But you talk to the majority of the people out there, and they probably won't. They're probably like, you know what, I don't need to, because for the first 30 days I get to watch it as many times as I want from the comfort of my home. I could invite people over and we can watch it together. It's like I said, it's the holidays. TVs have been selling like hotcakes because, one, they're so dirt cheap now, and two, people are preparing themselves for staying home more, or just having a better experience to watch television and movies from the comfort of their own home. So you're going to see a lot of people like building their own home theaters. Even though it may be a smaller space, they're still going to want to have that experience, right? And I think a lot of these people probably won't be going to movie theaters moving forward. And it's sad. It is really, really sad. Now, is this going to be the death of the movie theaters moving forward? I hope not. That's definitely one of the first things that popped into my mind when I heard this news. But I think the movie theater going experience is definitely going to change. Who's going to movies now, right? Nobody. But once they start opening, I, for one, am definitely going to want to go back. During the summer, me and two friends, we actually did one of those where we rented a screen for ourselves just to watch Tenet. because again, we missed that movie theater experience. And when you're talking about like a movie like, Tenet, who from Christopher Nolan, those are major movie going moments where you want to go to the theater and watch that, right? And it was kind of cool to have a theater all by ourselves, and I'm sure movie theaters are going to be still offering those type of deals and all that. But, the thing is, it's like, how much longer will theaters be able to keep in business when you have a major studio like this making this type of decision? And the minute that this news dropped, Disney started thinking about what they're going to do. Other studios like Paramount, Sony, you name it, they're all now contemplating, what should we do? Like, how can we compete with this? Like, everyone who has HBO Max is going to be able to watch Warner Brothers movies, maybe even more, easier than watching any of our movies. And we can't have that. We need to be able to have our movies shown as well. So this is going to cause a major domino effect where I won't be surprised if Disney starts announcing that, hey, Black Widow, guess what? Coming out January, all of our other movies we have slated for next year. Hey, guess what? You're going to be able to watch it on Disney Plus. For studios that don't have access to their own streaming service, they're going to have to start making deals probably with other studios as well, with other streaming platforms as well. How's Netflix going to play into all this? And the more and more studios start doing this, obviously the more and more money is going to be taken away from movie theaters and the movie theater companies. So I really, it's hard to say what's going to happen in the next couple of years, but it doesn't look good for movie theaters. And again, I really don't want the movie theater industry to die out completely, because I feel like that is something that we still need. We need to have that experience going to movie. Just like how, you still want to go to see live concerts. You still want to see live performances. You still want to go to Broadway. In Broadway, talk about Broadway. We don't even know. I'm in New York. We have no idea if they're going to be able to reopen in the summer of next year. And even if they do, which productions are going to be able to come back, right? Because money's being lost. So, it's a tough situation to think about. And, in previous episodes of my podcast, I've been talking about, the summer blockbuster movie season is dead, because we didn't have one, and if this is going to be the norm, it's going to be very different, right? People are going to be watching the movies from home. Maybe some will still go out. I love going to drive-ins. I was able to go to several drive-ins throughout the summer. So at least you still have that. But, movie theater chains are going to really, really feel the huge brunt of all of this. And I think what's going to happen is that your small movie theater, chains, your mom and pops and all that, they unfortunately probably won't get to survive that much longer. Maybe like the indie houses and all that, they may be able to still do something, because when it comes to like indie movies and art films and all that, you still need a certain place for that. And there's a huge fan base and audience who loves to still experience that. But you only get that in major cities, right? You get that in Chicago, New York, LA, maybe Austin. But when it comes to like regular movies or theaters that depend on these major studios, you're gonna start seeing them close up. And the major chains like Regal, AMC, Cinemark, they're probably gonna start closing down locations, right? Because they're not gonna be able to support support all of their locations when they're gonna have so little options. Plus, not to mention the fact that once movie theaters are allowed to reopen, they're still going to be at lower capacities until a final, well-proven vaccine is out there, and we have this situation more contained and controlled. So, it's going to be a very different experience moving forward. And, for me personally, it's kind of sad to really think about, one of the things that I was telling some people last week was I really feel this way, where we're going to go back to how things were in the 30s and 40s, where movie theaters were like this like huge event. Everyone who went to a movie was dressed to the nines in their fancy dresses, fancy suits, and it was like a major event, where you would treat it like as if it was a Broadway show, and you would go to the movie and you would enjoy the feature, and probably before the movie they're going to have some shorts, and it's going to be like a full-on experience, right? Nowadays, movie theaters offer food and drinks and all that stuff like that, and I think that's going to be more of a presence in the theaters that can remain open. But that also means that the movie theater going experience is going to be a little bit more premium, where I'm pretty sure you might have to pay more for your ticket. And, God knows how much the food and concessions will cost at that point. But hopefully you'll have your reclining seat, maybe they'll set up privacy booths to kind of help with the corona situation and all that stuff like that. Kind of like what I've experienced in Japan, where you could actually rent like a private booth, where you have dividers and you have your own little table on the side, and all that. Like if you had a baby, you have a place where you could put the baby to like sleep and not get bothered or what have you, because a lot of stay-at-home moms go to movie theaters as an escape sometimes. So maybe this is something that's going to be the norm, and we're gonna revert to how things were back in the the golden age of movies and movie theater going experiences and all that. But I don't know how that's going to play out. I could easily see that in major metropolitan cities, but I don't know how it's going to be like in suburban America, where already some people have to drive 15-20 minutes to their nearest movie theater. What's going to happen now? Is it going to be 30 minutes, 40 minutes? Who knows, right? Will there be like one movie theater per X amount of miles within a state? Who knows? Time will tell. I think initially it seems bleak, but for the consumer, it's fantastic. It's like we want to see other studios obviously make decisions like this so that we can give us the stuff we want to see. We've been waiting to see a lot of these movies and all that. For on the business side of things, I totally understand why they had to do this. It makes perfect sense, and I'm glad one studio put their foot down and said, what, enough with like the initial experimenting. This is our plan. 2021, we're gonna do it. We're gonna see how it plays out, and then we'll reevaluate afterwards. But at the end of the day, we're gonna give our consumers, our viewers, everything that they've been wanting for and everything that they've been waiting for, and they're gonna get to watch our movies. And if you want to watch it in the theater, you'll also have that option. It's just broadening the options to the consumers for the time that we live in now. So yeah, I'm interested to hear what you guys think about it. Like, are you fans like I am? Are you saddened to hear about this? Are you worried that the movie theaters will go away? I think, honestly, my initial reaction was, that's it. Movie theaters are dead. There's no chance they're ever going to come back. But then, I took a step back and I started to think about it more. And I think it's one of those like, cultural experiences where you're always going to have movie theaters. What kind of movie theaters you're going to have and what kind of experiences you're going to be able to have moving forward, that's what we're not sure of. That's what I'm not sure of. And I'm sure that will totally change. So we'll see. But again, huge news. I'm pretty certain that within the next couple of weeks, maybe once January hits, we're going to hear other studios make some sort of announcement and decision as to how they're going to handle their 2021 slate. But yeah, exciting times, very exciting and different times for sure. But again, I'm curious to hear what you guys think. Leave your comments in the comment section. And like I said before many times, I do stream on Twitch, so I have conversations about a lot of different topics with a lot of my viewers, regardless of what I'm doing there, whether I'm playing a game. Please interrupt me and let's talk about it. I would love to hear your thoughts on everything. Cool. So the other big news that kind of broke last week that I wanted to briefly talk about was Oscar Isaac. Oscar Isaac looks like has been cast to play Solid Snake in the upcoming Metal Gear Solid movie that is being adapted by Sony Pictures. I love the Metal Gear series. You know, I should mention that the latest iterations of Metal Gear I haven't had a chance to really fully play, but the earlier Metal Gear Solid games, you know, especially like when it hit the PlayStation 2 era and all that, I huge fan of those games. And I feel like the storytelling is so rich in those games that it's really it could turn into like some sort of movie franchise. Personally, I would prefer a TV series. And again, those of you who are watching Mandalorian will totally understand why that's the case. But yeah, I think this is really, really interesting news. It's nice to see that they're moving forward with this. It looks like the film is being helmed by Jordan Voight Roberts, who was responsible for Kong Skull Island. And the script is being written by Derek Connolly. What's interesting to note here, though, is that Avi Arad is producing the movie. Now, if you know who Avi is, you are very familiar of what kind of role he played when it came to a lot of the Marvel movies in the earlier iterations when X-Men came out. You know, back in I believe it was 2000. He was very responsible for a lot of those movies, so his pedigree is pretty strong. But from what I can see here, the production the production start date is unclear because Isaac actually is pretty busy with commitments to HBO's Scenes from a Marriage, Disney Plus's Marvel series Moon Knight. And guys, let's remember, he is playing Moon Knight for Disney Plus, so he's a very busy dude. And it looks like there is also going to be a film version of Comic Ex Machina dubbed The Great Machine, and Barry Levinson's Francis and the Godfather. So Oscar is very busy. He has a lot of things, and especially when it comes to kind of like the geek nerd culture type movies, like, you know, like Marvel and all that kind of stuff like that, you know, he has a lot of stuff on his plate there. So it's going to be very interesting to see what will happen when he finally gets a chance to film this, and how is it going to turn out, and what kind of story and timeline are they going to really focus on for this series. So, like, I'm really, really curious, because again, for anyone who is familiar with the whole franchise, the story can be very complex, and there's a lot of moving parts there, right? So I don't know how they're going to handle it. It's still pretty exciting, and I'm looking forward to it. So yeah, let me know if you guys are looking forward to that as well. So, like I mentioned before, I did have a chance to watch Mank on Netflix. Like I said, a movie by David Fincher. I believe the last movie that he released that I saw was Gone Girl, which was a fantastic movie. I've always been a huge fan of The Social Network. And when you think of movies like The Social Network, that's what I kind of looked at and compared to when it comes to this type of storytelling, because Mank is an actual person that lived, and this movie basically revolves around his time working with Orson Welles when it came to writing the script for Citizen Kane. And they dive into Mank's life a little bit and kind of what he was into, who he's corresponded with and all that. So, like I mentioned before, I don't consider myself a cinephile. I don't know, or I should say, my knowledge is not that in depth when it comes to Hollywood history. I do know quite a bit, and I've watched a lot of documentaries, and I've read a lot of articles and some books here and there. I love the golden age of Hollywood. There's a lot of interesting stuff that happened there back in the day. And it's just very interesting to see how the studios were formatted, and how basically during the 30s and 40s, because of the Depression, studios were faced with how are they going to entertain people, and studios at that time were kind of like, assembly lines where they were just like churning out movies left and right, every genre and all that stuff like that. It was more akin to probably like TV studios than how it is nowadays. But very, very interesting stuff that happened behind the scenes there. So, I'm after watching Mank, I did read up a little bit about his life and, the stories of him working with Orson Welles and all that, writing Citizen Kane. And there's a lot of different opinions out there. So I'm not going to judge this movie based on historical accuracy. I'm going to base this movie on the actual storytelling and getting me involved in a character who found himself in a very important and pivotal time in movie history, and how that story was portrayed in this movie setting, right? Again, like the Social Network, obviously it's based on the beginnings of Facebook, with Zuckerberg and who he was involved in. And even though it was, I would say pretty accurate, you take liberties. The director, the writer takes liberties to make the movie a little more engaging, interesting, emotional at certain times. And I remember when that movie came out, there was a lot of discrepancies that people were arguing about, complaining about, and you heard from like different sides of the story and all that. So let's not talk about that so much, but let's talk about the movie itself and the job it did with the storytelling. And I'll tell you right now, I really, really enjoyed this movie a lot. One of the things that stood out to me from the very get-go was the cinematography and the way the film was put together. It basically made me feel like I was watching a 1930s film, filmed in black and white. Looked like they used pretty much similar equipment, the editing and all that. Even during watching the movie, you had the cigarette burn that would pop up every time. And for those of you who know, that cigarette burn means that it's time to change the reel of the film when you're showing it in the projector, in a movie theater. So they had all of that going. The sound was very mono, and very, very done up like in the time. So I really, really loved how he did that. And it really, really gave that feeling and put me into that time period, like being in the 30s, being in the, during in that time. And basically, you have Herman Mankiewicz, Mank, the main character, portrayed by Gary Oldman. And, he was a writer, a playwright, a critic. And then he worked in Hollywood writing scripts, co-writing scripts. Writing for movies back then was done as a group. You had a team. And oftentimes people weren't credited for what they wrote. Usually full credit goes to either one person or the director or what have you. So he was part of a writing group and all that. And, Mank got himself into some trouble where it's like he was a big alcoholic, had a huge gambling problem and all that. But he was extremely smart and extremely prolific and all that. So during a time when he was down in his luck, he teamed up with Orson Welles, who was like an up-and-coming actor and director. He was signed up to work at RKO Studios while, Mank was kind of working with MGM. And, he pegged Mank to write a script for his movie Citizen Kane, which was, I believe, called The American originally. And basically, this movie takes you through that whole process while it jumps back and forth from exploring, Mank's life and the people he interacted with. He grew fond of a very up and coming talent, Marianne Davies, who was portrayed by Amanda Seyfried. She did a fantastic job with her Brooklyn accent because she's an actress from Brooklyn and all that. But she was basically living in a home with William Randolph Hearst, who was kind of like she was his mistress and all that. And there was a lot of controversy about how that turned out and everything. It was almost as if she was given up by her family to move to Hollywood and just live with this old dude, right? But then it talks about how someone like him, who was a big media mogul, big newspaper publisher, and working a little bit in movies, but he was also a huge politician. Louis B. Mayer, who was the head of MGM Studios, was portrayed by Arliss Howard, who did another phenomenal job there. And you could kind of see how Hollywood and politics played into a lot of things at the time, and the kind of dynamic they had with their relationships with Mank, especially while writing Citizen Kane, because it turns out that he took a lot of those experiences and the life of a lot of people around him and used that to focus on his film. And I believe one of the running theories, I don't know if it was fully proven yet or not, or maybe it has, was that like, the main character of Citizen Kane was actually based off of William Randolph Hearst and everything. And you could kind of see this, like you could kind of see how they addressed this in the movie as well, because the studios didn't want it. They didn't want to touch it because of like the implications of someone in real life. And Louis B. Mayer wanted to buy the film to kind of destroy it and all that, and not have it released and all that. And Orson had to like really figure out how to work with the studios to kind of put it out there, especially RKO. But the main point here is, not only do you see Mank write this script, and having to have to do it in such a short period of time. He only had 2 months to do so. But at the end of the day, like, he was down on his luck. He hasn't had a lot of success in recent years during this time. But he felt like whatever he wrote, that was the best piece of work he's ever written, and all he wanted to do was get credit for it. Now, according to the contract that he agreed on with Orson, he was not going to be credited for this movie. And there was like a big battle behind the scenes and all that. At the end of the day, he was able to get credit as a co-writer. And in the Oscars the following year of its release, Orson and Mank with Oscars for screenplay and all that. And obviously there was a lot of controversy behind that too. So as a story and as a movie, I thought it was extremely well done. I was not bored at all. I was very involved in all the characters that were introduced, and I really loved how they developed the character, and you show the relationship between Mank and Marion. Lily Collins was another character, was another actress in this movie. She played Rita Alexander, who was kind of like the typist of for Mank when he was writing this script and all that. She had a very interesting story about she's British, and her husband was in the war, and there was a certain time where he went missing and all that. But they developed this great friendship and relationship there. You saw a little bit about his relationship with his wife, and how things turned out during the big election in, I believe it was in 44, for the race for governor there in California, and how studios interfered a lot with that because of democracy and communism and socialism, and how that kind of played out throughout the movie at that time. So I thought overall it was a very well done movie. It was so good just to see another great Fincher product go out there. Gary Oldman again kills it with his performance in this movie. He did such a great job at portraying this down on his luck writer who's just very smart and doesn't know how to keep his mouth shut, and always wanting to push the boundaries of what he could say out loud. His gambling problems, his reliance on alcohol to write and all that. Like, it was just so well done. The performances around the board were really well done, but I would have to make a huge call out to Charles Dance, who portrayed William Randolph Hearst. Such a kind of like demanding appearance, and kind of like, you don't want to mess with this dude. Like, this is a dude of power, but yet he's so mysterious, and you don't know really what he's up to and all that. Very, very well done movie. If I were to rate this movie, I would definitely give it a 4 out of 5 Oscars. Let's do that, because at the end, the movie ends with them winning the Oscar and kind of giving their own speeches and what have you, and all that stuff like that. So do check it out. It's on Netflix. It's definitely one of Netflix's best movies of this year. I would rank it up there with probably one of the top 5 movies I saw this year, and that's not saying much because there weren't a lot of movies that came out this year, but I definitely really appreciate it, and I definitely highly recommend it. I could actually see myself watching this movie again, because that's just how good it was. So yeah, do check it out. And like I said, if you seen it, let me know in the comments. Let me know what you thought about it. Are you a student of Hollywood of the time period. Like, do you know a lot about the history of movies or the period? Let me know how accurate or inaccurate it was, and all that. I'm definitely going to be watching Citizen Kane again this week, because the last time I saw it, I think I was in my teens, and I think at that time I didn't really get it fully, but my knowledge and appreciation of movies has changed so much since then that I think I'm going to have a different experience if I watch it now. So I'm looking forward to watching it again this week, and maybe I'll make a video out of it. You can kind of see, like, how does a movie like Citizen Kane hold today, especially if someone who's watching it again almost with fresh new eyes, because it's hard for me to recall a lot of stuff from the movie since I saw it so young. So yeah, so you have that. All right. Now, this is the moment of the show here, where I huge spoiler warning. I'm going to go into Mandalorian, the latest episode that dropped on Friday. If you saw my video on YouTube, you know already how crazy I am going for this season. Every week I've been geeking out left and right. I've been loving all the recent episodes. By far, for me personally, this season trumps last season, because it's really rewarding us Star Wars fans with a lot of stuff. It brought back the kid in me, and brought back my love and passion for Star Wars, which I've been kind of missing lately. And it's bringing back that weekly anticipation that I had. Probably the last time I had something like this was with Game of Thrones. Like The Boys, I was like very interested week after week and all that, but that like I really cannot wait to see what's next. Like, I haven't felt that since Game of Thrones. So you have been warned, spoiler, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to have a graphic here somewhere to kind of like dictate that. But yeah, let's go into, so Mandalorian, this is chapter 14, titled The Tragedy, and tragedy could mean a lot of different things in this episode. One of the best things that I love about this episode is that it was directed by Robert Rodriguez, who I'm a huge fan of. So I wasn't really quite sure what to expect. Like, are we going to see a lot of action, stylized action maybe, and all that? It's kind of hard to tell. Like, he is, along with Favreau and Taika Waititi, who's directed episodes of The Mandalorian. He is a very seasoned Hollywood movie director. He's worked with Quentin Tarantino a lot, so I wasn't sure what we were going to get, but I loved how this episode started with a very funny but yet touching moment of Mando and Grogu playing with the ball again, and he's testing him. He's trying to see, like, hey, you gotta fetch it. You gotta fetch it. I know you could do it. And, he's getting so excited. One, that he finally knows the kid's name, and he was getting a kick of calling him Grogu and seeing, the child respond. And then that back and forth. But then it ends basically with him saying that you're a very special being, and I really want you to get the training that you deserve. He mentioned Ahsoka as the nice lady, said that you have the ability to do this and you should be doing, X, Y, and Z. So I want to make sure that I complete my mission and get you somewhere where you deserve to be, so that you could further your training, because you deserve it, because you're special. Huge emotional feels for me when that moment happened. And then I wasn't expecting to get to the planet already. We got there. They got to the mountaintop where Grogu was supposed to do his Jedi thing and hopefully reach out to somebody. I thought we weren't gonna get here until like the last episode of the season, if at all, right? So we're here. So I'm just like, whoa, okay, we're here. All right, let's get started. And then, as always, something kind of interrupts. And what do we see off in the distance flying in? We see freaking Slave One. Slave One comes flying in, and then freaking Boba Fett. We finally get to see what's going on with Boba Fett, because we got teased with him at the end of the first episode of the season. And he flies in on Slave One. Mando's like, I don't know who this person is. And there he is. Boba shows up, and he's like, I come from he's looking for the armor. He wants the armor. And of course, Mando's like trying his best to explain to him that, I don't think you're Mandalorian. I don't think you deserve it. And then we find out that Boba is not alone. right? And basically, um, Boba has a partner now, and his partner happens to be Fennec, who we saw in season one was a bounty and was eventually killed on Tatooine. But at the end of that episode, we saw kind of like, these boots walking over, and then cuts. So it turns out Boba saves her, brought her back to life. Now she's partial robotic, a la Luke. And now she's working with Boba because of kind of like a life debt, so to speak. But then they exchange words, and they're saying basically, look, give me the armor. It belongs to my family line. He mentions Django, his father, and all that stuff like that. And we'll guarantee you safety for the child. And before they could even come to an agreement, we see another ship fly in, and here we go. The Empire's making their presence, and it becomes, this is where the episodes, like, it was already getting good, and this is where it just takes it up a whole other notch, and it becomes this fast-paced, adrenaline, action-filled sequence of, Mando trying to fight off the stormtroopers while still running to get Grogu, but Grogu cannot be moved, or because he's within this Jedi Force penetrate, and he cannot penetrate it, because he's doing what he had to do. And then you got Boba and Fennec, working together to, destroy these troopers. You get to see Boba really fight for the first time. And what a badass he was. And he was using a gaffy stick that, the Tusken Raiders usually use. Again, kind of like an article from Tatooine, because that's where he's been spending the last, I don't know, X amount of years on that planet. We still don't even know how he escaped the Sarlacc pit, but at this point it doesn't even matter. I'm sure we'll find out eventually. But the fact that he's like, wiping away these stormtroopers like crazy. I mean, so much so that you see shards of the armor getting split open and then like spraying all over the place. It was just insanity. So really awesome scenes. And then he finally finds a moment, and he goes into Mando's ship, and then he gets the armor. And once he has the armor, whoo, we know why he wants that armor. We know why the armor belongs to him, because he just goes full on Boba mode at this point. And it's just unbelievable, a sight to be seen for sure. After the battle, after they believe they took out who they took out, Mando agrees, yes, the armor belongs to you. We get a nice little history lesson about Boba, where he kind of shows that there's an imprint on the armor that shows kind of the bloodline. You could see like Django was part of, the reason why he has this armor in his family, and how Django was actually part of some of the wars on Mando, on some of the wars that the Mandalorians were involved in, and all that. And that's how he acquired the armor, and that's why it belongs to him. And Mando agrees. It's like, hey, look, you've earned it. And and then we think Grogu is going to be okay, or we hope, and we see another form of life beings shoot into the planet, and it's the Death Troopers, which are fully armed, robotic, black, colored troopers, and they all come in sync. And before Mando can do anything, he makes it to the top, and he sees them basically grab Grogu, and that's it. Grogu's taken. And Boba's like, oh no. You see him in Slave One chasing after, but then once he sees the big Imperial ship, he's like, no. I can't believe that the Empire is still around, and I can't believe it with my own eyes, and there's no way I'm going to be able to go against this giant behemoth. So he stands down and all that, and Mando is just distraught, and he's like, oh my god, what am I going to do now? Well, you have the armor, your mission is done. And basically they said, no, we made a promise, we will help you get the kid back. And I was like, what? So now you have Mando joining up with Boba Fett, who now has Fennec, and this is gonna be the ragtag group that's gonna go after the child. Get out of here. This is the best thing I've ever seen. I would have never guessed that this was gonna happen. So then fast forward. Oh, and by the way, before they hightail it out of there, the Empire that is, they said, you know what? F you. They blew up Mando's ship. The Silver Crest is gone. He has no more modes of transportation. I've never seen that in a Star Wars movie before, where a main character's mode of transportation gets fully destroyed like that. Wiped out of oblivion. So Mando has no ship. Mando has no Grogu. And now he has to team up with Boba and Fennec and try to rescue the child. So they go over. He talks to Cara Dune, who I guess officially agreed that she was going to be part of the new Rebel Order again. You know, because he's looking at the medal that was dropped there last time. And he asked for help. And he's like, I need you to help me find Bill Burr's character from season 1, because he is very familiar with the Empire and knows the ins and outs. I need to spring him out because I need his help. And she's like, I can't do that. Look, I'm already part of the Rebel Alliance and there are rules I have to follow. And he's like, you know what? The child is gone. They took him and I need that help. And she was just like, you could tell, let's go. You know, I'm helping you. Then we see Grogu on the Imperial ship, you know, using the Force, you know, like trying to get away from everyone. And there's, you know, Moff Gideon, and he's just full on delight. And he was just like, we got you. He teases him with like the dark saber. It's like, yeah, you're powerful, but you're still weak and you're still learning. Have you ever seen one of these? You can't get these. He makes a funny comment that it might poke your eye out, which I thought was pretty hilarious. And then they stun him, and now he's a prisoner, and the episode ends. My God, guys, I've been saying it, guys and gals. I've been saying it, you know, for the last couple of weeks. I said it in my special video about the Mandalorian season 2. This season is insane, and I've been loving so much of it. This was a fantastic episode. Was it as good or better than the week before when we finally saw Ahsoka? I think the Ahsoka episode had something that was very close and dear to my heart, because I love that character so much, and this was the first time we got to see this character in live action presence. But still, I also loved Boba Fett ever since I was a kid, and to finally see Boba Fett, what he's capable of and all that, and now he's teaming up with Mando for the rest of the season from what it looks like. Oh my God, I don't know what's going to happen. I really don't know what's going to happen. We have 2 episodes left. You know, we need to figure things out. But yeah, it was an amazing episode. Robert Rodriguez killed it. You know, great directing, great action scenes. A lot of it, you could tell they filmed on location instead of using their stagecraft, whatever they call it. And it just fit with his style and the way he tells the story. It was only like 30 minutes, which still, the time, the run times are killing me, but they packed in so much in the 30 minutes. Literally at the end of the episode, when they cut to black, after you see like Grogu in the cell, passed out and chained up, you know, I was holding like my pillow to my face. I was just like, are you kidding me? Like, really? This is where we are? Yeah, I really cannot wait to watch the next episode, and that's where it left me. It left me with that that feverish anticipation. Like, I really wish I could watch what's next. And again, they're doing a really, really great job. And this episode was amazing and fantastic. So yeah, so we have 2 episodes left. I believe Rick Famuyiwa, I hope I'm saying that right, is going to be directing this week's episode, because he did write it. And then I believe the last episode will be directed by either Favreau or Filoni, if I am not mistaken. I could be wrong. I don't know where they're going to go. I don't know how this season is going to end. This was kind of like the Empire of the season because it ended in such a down note. You know, they finally captured the child. Mando's ship is gone. But still, he has people that are willing to help him. But they're up against a major foe, big group of baddies, you know, and the Empire's no one to mess with. So it's exciting. I don't know what's going to happen, but I really can't wait to talk about it once I see it. So again, let me know what you guys think in the comments. Let's have a conversation. Let's be respectable in our comments, even if you're not liking it or what have you. I want to know why you're not liking it. You know, let's have a conversation and let's talk about it. But yeah, that's pretty much the show right there, guys. You know, I am me and you are you, and this was the Low Key Geek Podcast. So thank you again for tuning in, whether you're watching on YouTube or you are catching the audio on podcast. Again, we would really appreciate the support if you hit that like and subscribe, give a good rating, you know, do what you got to do, spread the word, and check out my other forms of content on YouTube or catch me on Twitch at twitch.tv, the Low Key Geek, / the Low Key Geek there, where I stream 3 times a week, maybe 4, depending on the week. And if you like watching someone play games, good or bad, or at least you know they're having a lot of fun and they will just want to engage with the audience, then come hang out and check me out there. So until next time, guys, stay cool, stay classy, stay safe. Let's hit the theme. Be kind to one another, wash your hands, wear your mask. Guys, let's do what we can do to get ourselves out of this situation and where we could just enjoy life again. I think that's just what we need. And I will catch all of you guys next week. All right, guys. Peace.